Why would Rock Hudson, one of Hollywood's most adored leading men, utterly hate someone as charming and popular as Tab Hunter? It's a question that surprises many, especially since both men were icons of the golden age of cinema, admired for their looks, charisma, and smooth performances. But beneath the polished Hollywood smiles and perfectly staged publicity photos lay a bitter rivalry few knew about. And now, decades later, we finally understand the real reason behind this intense animosity. On the surface, Rock Hudson was the embodiment of the American movie star, tall, handsome, with a voice that could melt hearts and a romantic presence that made audiences swoon. Tab Hunter, meanwhile, was a boy-next-door type who quickly rose to fame with his boyish good looks and singing talent. Both men starred in countless films throughout the 1950s and early 60s, often competing for the same roles and fans. But this competition wasn't just about who could sell more tickets. It went much deeper, fueled by jealousy, hidden truths, and Hollywood's dark, secretive culture. This story isn't your typical Hollywood feud about a bad review or a lost part. It's rooted in the pressures of maintaining flawless public images in an era when personal lives had to be locked away tight. In a world where appearances meant everything and any hint of scandal could ruin a career, Hudson and Hunter's relationship became a complicated web of rivalry, unspoken truths, and silent battles. At the heart of the matter were secrets that neither man could openly share, secrets about who they truly were. Both Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter lived double lives in many ways, forced to hide their real selves to keep their careers alive. And as the spotlight grew brighter on them, so did the tension between what they showed the world and what they desperately tried to keep hidden. The tension between them wasn't just about fame. It was about identity, control, and survival in a Hollywood system that demanded perfection but punished any sign of weakness. Hudson's immense star power made him a dominant figure in the industry, but also created resentment. Hunter, struggling to find his place in this unforgiving environment, often felt overshadowed and sidelined. What's fascinating is that many of the details behind their feud only surfaced decades later through biographies, interviews, and insider stories. The Hollywood machine kept things tightly sealed during their careers, and for years, fans could only guess what was really going on behind scenes. In this video, we'll peel back the glamorous curtain and reveal the hidden story behind the hatred. We'll look at how competition for roles, the struggle for acceptance, and the necessity of keeping secrets all collided to create a deep and lasting rift. But the story doesn't end with bitterness. There are moments of pain, confusion, and even tragic irony that show just how hard it was for these men to live up to the images they portrayed. So, why did Rock Hudson utterly hate Tab Hunter? The answer isn't simple, but once you hear it, you'll see Hollywood in a whole new light, a place where the most dazzling stars were often fighting battles the world never saw. And what happened next would shock everyone. Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter weren't just two famous faces on the silver screen. They were Hollywood royalty in the 1950s and early 60s, defining what it meant to be a leading man. But to fully understand their intense rivalry, we need to step back and look at who they really were, how their careers took off, and the unusual space they shared in an era obsessed with perfect images. Rock Hudson was born Roy Harold Scherer Jr. in 1925, and his rise to stardom was nothing short of remarkable. He had the classic Hollywood look, tall, broad-shouldered, with a jawline carved from marble and a charm that made women swoon. Hudson became the go-to romantic lead, starring in hits like Giant and Pillow Talk. His career was built on a seemingly effortless ability to play the all-American hero, the man every woman wanted and every man admired. Yet beneath that confident exterior was a man carefully managing a secret life, at a time when Hollywood demanded flawless facades. Tab Hunter, born Arthur Andrew Kellman in 1931, was a younger counterpart in this Hollywood story. He burst onto the scene as a heartthrob and singer, quickly earning the label teen idol. His boyish good looks and friendly persona made him wildly popular with younger audiences. Hunter's early success included films like Battle Cry and Damn Yankees, and he also had a surprising career as a pop singer. But while he had the charm and looks, Hunter was often seen as less commanding than Hudson, more the approachable boy next door rather than the towering leading man. Despite their differences, their careers overlapped in a way that naturally created tension. They were both under contract to major studios, Hudson with Universal, Hunter with Warner Brothers, and often found themselves cast in similar types of roles. Hollywood loved to pit handsome actors against each other, fueling fan rivalries and keeping the press interested. But beyond the studio's marketing machines, Hudson and Hunter's paths crossed in a world where image was everything and competition was cutthroat. Publicly, their relationship appeared polite, maybe even friendly at times. Hollywood was known for its smiles and handshakes, no matter what was happening beneath the surface. But the reality was far more complicated. Both men were navigating careers that demanded they stay perfect in the eyes of the public, while hiding parts of their personal lives that could destroy their reputations. At the time, being openly anything other than the all-American image could mean the end of a career. This pressure to keep their true selves hidden added a layer of tension that few outsiders could understand. Hudson and Hunter were two of the most eligible bachelors on screen, but both were secretly struggling with their identities in a time when society and the studios forced silence. Their competition wasn't just about who could sell more tickets. It was about who could maintain the illusion better, who could survive the harsh spotlight of Hollywood's judgment. What's even more striking is how their contrasting personalities added fuel to the fire. Hudson was often seen as a more mysterious, private type, someone who guarded his personal life fiercely. Hunter, on the other hand, was more open and approachable, but that also made him vulnerable to envy and criticism in a world that prized control and image above all. This background sets the stage for understanding why their rivalry wasn't just typical Hollywood drama. It was about fame, identity, and the hidden battles behind the scenes. And as we dig deeper, we'll see how these two men's lives became tangled in ways that shocked even those closest to them. But the real story, the root of the resentment, was far darker and more complex than anyone imagined. When Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter first came onto Hollywood's radar, the public saw two dazzling young stars destined for greatness. Fans adored them, gossip columns buzzed about their latest roles, and the studios worked hard to craft their images as the ultimate dream men. But behind the glitz and glam, the early years of their relationship were far from simple. At the start, Hudson and Hunter seemed like they could have been allies, or at least neutral parties navigating the tricky waters of Hollywood together. Both were rising fast, and both were often cast as a romantic lead or charming heartthrob. Their studios, however, saw them as competitors. Press and fans loved to compare the two, who was more handsome, who was a better actor, who had more charisma. This comparison created an invisible but powerful rivalry that would simmer under the surface for years. Publicly, their interactions were polite and professional. Hollywood stars were expected to be gracious, especially on camera and at events. But some insiders hinted that their smiles didn't always reach their eyes. The studios made sure that any sign of friction was buried deep, since the scandal could hurt box office sales. So the carefully crafted public image hid the tension well. Fan magazines played a big role in shaping how people saw Hudson and Hunter. They were often painted as friendly rivals, competing for the hearts of moviegoers but respecting each other's talents. Meanwhile, tabloids occasionally fueled whispers of jealousy or secret disagreements, but nothing concrete ever emerged. It was the perfect Hollywood balancing act. Conflict was teased but never confirmed. What complicated things even more was the era's strict social rules. Both actors were known to be private about their personal lives, and for good reason. The 1950s weren't kind to stars who didn't fit the mold of the heterosexual romantic lead. Both Hudson and Hunter were navigating their careers in secret, carrying the heavy burden of hidden truths. In an industry that prized American ideals, the pressure to maintain a spotless public persona was immense. This forced secrecy added a strange dynamic to their relationship. Neither could openly be themselves, and the studios often encouraged or forced them to keep certain parts of their lives hidden. This meant that their rivalry wasn't just about work. It was also about controlling narratives, managing rumors, and protecting fragile images. Behind the scenes, Some reports suggest that Hunter admired Hudson's star power, but also resented the way Hudson's career overshadowed his own. Hudson, on the other hand, was said to be fiercely protective of his status and wary of anyone who might challenge his position. This subtle power struggle, disguised as professional courtesy, set the stage for deeper conflicts to come. The public didn't see the emotional toll this took on both men. They just saw two handsome stars smiling for the cameras, appearing to live the glamorous life. But the reality was far different. A complex blend of rivalry, fear, and the desperate need to protect their careers. And yet, this wasn't the full story. What really drove a wedge between them was something far more personal. Something that the Hollywood machine desperately tried to keep under wraps. What came next would expose cracks not just in their relationship, but in the very system that shaped them. The surface rivalry between Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter was only the beginning. Beneath the public smiles and press-friendly images, something much deeper and darker fueled the animosity between these two stars. The root of their resentment wasn't just about roles or fan attention. It was tangled up in jealousy, secrecy, and the harsh realities of being closeted in a ruthless Hollywood. By the mid-1950s, Rock Hudson had become one of the most bankable stars in the industry. His leading man status wasn't just about looks. It was about the powerful image he projected, the mysterious allure he carried. But this power came with its own costs. Hudson was famously private, especially about his personal life, which he guarded fiercely. Rumors swirled about his sexuality, but in that era, such whispers could destroy careers. So he kept everything tightly controlled. Tab Hunter, while successful, often lived in Hudson's shadow. Hunter's charm was undeniable, but he struggled with the fact that Hudson seemed to have an unbreakable hold on Hollywood's attention. It wasn't just professional jealousy, it was a deeper, personal frustration. Hunter reportedly felt overshadowed, not only on screen, but also in the hidden social circles where Hollywood's secret lives played out. One major element fueling the tension was the fact that both men were living double lives in an era that demanded silence. Both Hudson and Hunter were rumored to be gay, something that was strictly taboo at the time. Neither could be open without risking everything they'd built. This shared secret created a complicated dynamic, one filled with fear, mistrust, and unspoken competition. Some insiders suggest that Hudson's immense star power gave him an almost controlling presence, not just professionally but personally. He was known to be protective of his image and suspicious of anyone who might threaten it, including Hunter. There are whispers that Hudson sometimes uses influence behind the scenes to keep Hunter from surpassing him or stealing the spotlight. Hunter, on his part, wrestled with the frustration of being second best, despite his own talents. This frustration sometimes spilled over into bitterness and jealousy toward Hudson. Interviews in Hunter's memoirs later revealed moments of sharp criticism and hurt feelings directed at Hudson, indicating the feud was deeply personal. The studios only made things worse. The tightly controlled Hollywood system forced actors to maintain facades that were often at odds with their real lives. Both men were pressured to present themselves as heterosexual heartthrobs while hiding their true identities. This impossible balancing act created emotional strain, making any rivalry more intense. At the same time, rumors of overlapping romantic interests and secret social circles hinted at even more complicated personal entanglements. Hollywood's closeted elite often moved in tight, secretive groups, where alliances and betrayals could shape careers overnight. It said that jealousy wasn't only about professional success. It was about personal connections that Hudson and Hunter both desperately sought but never fully found. All of this combined created a perfect storm of resentment. What appeared a simple rivalry was actually a mix of suppressed desires, fear of exposure, and a cutthroat fight for survival in a system that demanded silence and perfection. But the most shocking revelations were still ahead, details that would completely change how we see both men and their turbulent relationship. Hollywood's golden age wasn't just about glamour and glitz. Behind the bright lights and red carpets lay a world of ruthless competition, hidden agendas, and toxic rivalries, especially for stars like Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter. Their story exposes just how dark these rivalries could get when fame, fear, and secrecy collided. The studio system of the 1950s was brutal. Studios controlled every aspect of their stars' lives, from the roles they took to the relationships they were allowed to have in public. Both Hudson and Hunter were contract players, locked into strict agreements that limited their freedom and demanded absolute loyalty. This created an environment where rivalry wasn't just natural, it was enforced. Hudson, as the bigger star, wielded significant influence. Stories whispered through Hollywood's back corridors suggest that he wasn't above using that power to keep Hunter in his place. There are rumors, never officially confirmed but persistent, that Hudson might have sabotaged some of Hunter's opportunities, either by pushing for script changes or discouraging producers from casting him in leading roles. At the same time, Hunter was grappling with his own internal battles. Behind his sunny public persona was a man dealing with frustration and isolation. Hollywood's demand that he hide his true self put him under constant stress. This vulnerability made him an easy target for manipulation and fueled his bitterness toward Hudson's seemingly effortless rise. One particularly painful layer of their rivalry involved the secret worlds they moved in, the hidden social circles of closeted actors and industry insiders. Navigating these circles was like walking a tightrope. Any misstep could mean scandal, career ruin, or worse. Hudson's reputation as someone who guarded his secrets jealously likely clashed with Hunter's more open, though still careful, approach. This difference caused tension that extended beyond career competition into personal mistrust. Gossip columns occasionally hinted at behind-the-scenes conflicts, strained conversations, cold shoulders, whispered arguments. Yet, Hollywood's publicists worked hard to keep these stories out of the papers, replacing them with photos of friendly smiles and handshakes. But anyone close to the industry knew the smiles often masked bitterness and rivalry far sharper than the public realized. What made this rivalry especially damaging was the emotional toll it took. Both men were forced to suppress their identities, live double lives, and present a perfect image to the world, all while watching each other with suspicion. It was a pressure cooker of envy, fear, and desperation. Hunter's later interviews and memoirs revealed how deeply these experiences affected him. He spoke about feeling overshadowed and struggling with his own place in Hollywood's hierarchy. At times, his words carried a hint of resentment toward Hudson, who seemed to have it all: fame, power, and protection. Meanwhile, Hudson's tragic death from illness decades later cast a new light on their rivalry. It revealed how much pain both men carried privately, far from the public eye. The harsh Hollywood system that had pitted them against each other also forced them into isolation. This darker side of Hollywood reminds us that behind every shining star, there's often a hidden story of struggle, secrecy, and conflict. For Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter, it was a battle not just for roles or fame, but for survival in a world that demanded they be something they could never fully be. And yet, even with all this, the story wasn't over. What followed revealed even deeper controversies and unexpected twists that would shock fans and historians alike. The rivalry between Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter didn't just simmer quietly. It was stoked by swirling controversies and rumors that spread like wildfire behind the scenes. In Hollywood's shadowy underworld, whispers often became weapons, and in their case, these unconfirmed stories fed resentment and deepened the divide. One of the biggest rumors that plagued both men involved their private lives. At a time when Hollywood's code demanded absolute silence on anything off-script, even the faintest hint about sexuality could cause a scandal. Gossip about Hudson and Hunter's closeted identities circulated in Hollywood's inner circles, sometimes cruel and often damaging. For Hudson, this meant constant vigilance, a relentless effort to guard his public persona. For Hunter, the rumors created a different kind of pressure, sometimes feeling exposed and vulnerable, sometimes feeling targeted. There were also persistent stories about overlapping romantic interests within the hidden gay community of Hollywood elites. Some insiders suggest that Hudson and Hunter competed not only for screen roles, but also for the attention and approval of powerful studio figures and socialites. This private competition added a personal edge to their rivalry that was far more intense than the public ever saw. Hudson's immense stardom gave him access to a world of influence that Hunter found hard to penetrate. This power imbalance created friction. Hudson was seen as the gatekeeper, able to open doors or quietly close them on a whim. Rumors circulated that Hunter's career stalled in part because of Hudson's behind-the-scenes maneuvering, though no concrete proof ever surfaced. Still, these whispers were enough to fuel Hunter's bitterness and feelings of being sidelined. Then there were the controversies tied to the studios themselves. Warner Brothers and Universal Pictures, each with its own star system, saw Hudson and Hunter as rivals to promote or control. Studio heads played favorites, manipulated press coverage, and managed star images carefully. Hunter later claimed that the system was rigged against him in favor of bigger names like Hudson. The pressure from studios to keep certain truths hidden only intensified the secret competition. Another darker rumor involved disputes over social circles and secret gatherings, places where closeted actors mingled away from the prying eyes of the press. Hudson's circle was notoriously exclusive, and Hunter reportedly felt shut out and resentful. Some said that Hudson's group controlled access to the best parties and industry favors, leaving Hunter isolated. These social snubs only added to the tension. While these controversies and rumors were never fully confirmed at the time, they shaped how both men saw each other. The fear of exposure, the fight for control, and the struggle for acceptance combined to create a volatile mix. Each accusation, real or imagined, deepened the rift between them. For decades, fans knew only the polished versions of Hudson and Hunter. But as biographies, memoirs, and interviews later revealed, the truth was far messier. Their feud wasn't just about professional jealousy. It was about the emotional and social battles forced on them by a Hollywood machine that demanded secrecy and perfection. And yet, after all the bitterness and battles, there was an unexpected twist in their story. One that forced both men and everyone watching to reconsider everything they thought they knew. Just when the story between Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter seemed defined by rivalry, secrecy, and bitter resentment, an unexpected twist emerged. One that reshaped how we understand both men and their place in Hollywood history. In the decades following their peak fame, new information and personal revelations came to light, painting a more nuanced picture of their complicated relationship. Rather than simply being rivals trapped in a zero-sum game, it turned out that their lives were connected by shared struggles and silent solidarity. One of the most striking revelations came from Tab Hunter himself, who opened up in interviews in his memoir about the pain of living under Hollywood's crushing expectations. Hunter spoke candidly about how isolating the experience was, forced to hide his true self while watching others like Hudson navigate similar challenges. His bitterness softened with time, replaced by a deep understanding of the difficult choices Hudson had to make. Rock Hudson's own story also took on new meaning after his tragic illness and death in the 1980s. When news broke of his health crisis, it shook the entertainment world and brought attention to the hidden realities faced by many closet actors of that era. Hudson's death revealed the personal cost of decades spent living a double life and maintaining a perfect facade for cameras. What surprised many was that despite their rivalry, both men were ultimately victims of the same unforgiving system. Hollywood's demand for secrecy and flawless images forced them into isolation and competition, but also bound them together in ways few could see at the time. They weren't just rivals. They were survivors of a Hollywood that wasn't ready to accept their truths. This shift in perspective led to a broader reevaluation of their legacies. Hudson and Hunter are now recognized not only for their screen talents, but also for the courage it took to live as they did under impossible conditions. Their stories highlight the dark side of fame and the human cost behind a glamorous facade. In recent years, documentaries, biographies, and retrospectives have sought to uncover full story, showing how their rivalry was shaped by societal pressures, personal fears, and a shared struggle for authenticity. The once sharply drawn lines between them have blurred, replaced by empathy and a recognition of the harsh realities they both faced. Their feud, once thought to be a simple clash of egos, is now understood as a tragic consequence of a system that forced secrecy and competition over honesty and support. This legacy has opened doors for more open conversations about identity, acceptance, and the cost of fame, conversations that continue to evolve today. So, what started as a story about two Hollywood heartthrobs caught in a bitter feud ends up being a powerful reminder of how complicated and human the lives behind the spotlight really are. If there's one takeaway from their story, it's this. Fame can be as isolating as it is dazzling, and sometimes the fiercest rivalries hide the deepest shared struggles. If you found this story fascinating, hit like and subscribe for more deep dives into Hollywood's most intriguing tales. Thanks for watching.